This episode is dedicated to our sponsors over on Patreon. Thank you all. My friends. Philip, DM Phil, how are you doing?
You know, I'm a lot better now that Yul has promised to show me some of his nudity later. So my spirits are uplifted.
No take backsies, right, Yul?
I didn't know I was being serious when I said that.
Oh, okay. Well, it's been a little while since we've gotten together to do one of these episodes because we always take a little break when we're finished recording with the old book and before we start the new book. You know, to give everybody a little bit of a...
Are these considered seasons?
Yeah, on the podcast
season?
they are.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. We're getting up to like 9 or something.
Wow, that's how people get extra seasons. We've only been doing this for like 4 years, but we have 9 seasons.
Every book's a season. I don't know why it would be different.
Exactly.
Welcome back to Sci-Fi and Fantasy Read Along. We are here today to discuss one of Philip K. Dick's most famous novels, The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch.
It's crazy because I've never heard of it before.
It's not crazy, actually, because Blade Runner or Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep so far surpasses this novel in popularity and fame, as does The Man in a High Castle. And he has 50 novels or something like that. You can read one novel a week for a year. You know, maybe you have to read a book of short stories too to get through that. But have either of you read him before?
Actually, no.
But then again, your knowledge of science fiction is actually rather limited as well. That's not a diss, it's just a fact, right?
Oh man, I've quadrupled or quintupled the amount of sci-fi lore I possess.
So I'm not terribly surprised that you've never heard of this book. What about you, Yul?
On your recommendation, I started with Martian Time Slip.
That's a fun one.
And I haven't read another one since, so I'm really happy to be starting up again.
Did you not like it? Was that what happened?
No, I liked it. It was fine. I can't really remember everything that happened, but... So I didn't read the back of this book except for like the first sentence.
Neither did I, yeah.
So Mars is going to play a thing in this book, I guess, and Martian Time Slip, Mars definitely played a role there, so I'm just kind of assuming he has this thing about Mars when he's writing.
He has a couple of things that I'm aware of and a couple that I'm not aware of. He's got something about dark-haired girls. They're almost always his villainesses. And he's got something for precognition. That's a common theme throughout a lot of his stories. And colonies, space colonies, Mars, Ganymede, Venus, what have you. There's stuff like that. But I don't know. I've only read 11 of his books, I guess.
I'm shocked. You used to be obsessed with Dick.
Is this gonna happen every time?
Uh-huh.
Every time?
I couldn't help it.
Sometimes I'll talk about my love of Dick, and then sometimes I'll tell you about how much I want more cock.
Oh, yes, I understand. I have a buddy in Texas. His name is Mike, and he is the person who really turned me on to Dick. I got a hold of his used dicks. Some of them were beat up. Some of them were torn. Some of them were...
just ugly.
You know, the covers had come off, and you look at what's inside, and you're like, Jesus, I can't believe I paid money for this dick.
Right.
However, we do pay money. There are a lot of jokes that go along with this guy's name.
I have heard from another friend of mine, the followers of Philip K. Dick are called dickheads.
Yeah, that was like if you were a member of the fan club, I believe, you were a dickhead.
Why would you not say that? I mean,
I
going
no
around
idea.
town saying, I'm a dickhead. This is a positive thing, maybe.
This book was written in, I don't know, probably 1963. It was published in 1964 originally. Marilyn Monroe, New Jersey. She had been dead for 2 years when this book came out.
Is there a real Marilyn Monroe, New Jersey?
I didn't look it up. I doubt it. I did look up a couple things, and I figure we might as well talk about those in the beginning before we start talking about the story itself. Any name that was associated with a unit of measure that he invented for this novel, I looked them all up. Freud is obviously Freud, right? That's a unit of stress that's revealed later on. There's the Grable, which is the amount a glacier recedes. There is what's that one? His name was Alexander Selkirk, I believe, which is about the oceans evaporating. I think Selkirk is referring to Alexander Selkirk, who was the original castaway. And I was thinking maybe Betty Grable, because she was so hot she could melt a glacier. But the last one, I couldn't. Wagner, I couldn't find any way that Wagner would be a unit of measurement for heat. Like, what happened? What happened? Fahrenheit not good enough? Celsius break? Did we get off the scale of either one of those things? I don't think we did.
If you keep going really super high in degrees, so if I told you, Phil, that it's 175 degrees, you're going to be like, man, it's hot. I better not go outside. But if I tell you it's only 25 Wagners, you might feel a little bit better about that.
No, but he literally says one time in there, 180 degree heat.
Yeah.
Why change the scale of temperature? I don't understand that one.
I don't know, to sound futuristic.
There's a lot of ways he could have done it. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
I mean, he has a lot of things that are pretty much like what we deal with now, but a little bit more inflated. You know, like the taxi service within the apartment complex that they live in or something like that.
I don't think they ever go outside if they can help it.
If they can, but we will see someone go outside for a moment.
Just a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's not go too far. I'm sorry that I derailed us there. That was my fault. Let's talk about this book. It's divided into 13 chapters, which means we're going to break it up into 13 episodes. We're just going to stick to the way that we've been doing things. I like the way that goes. I like the amount of time that it takes us to prepare. I think you guys will agree that it makes it a lot easier than trying to do a bunch of chapters at once.
By a long shot, yes. It compartmentalizes it very well.
The downside to that, of course, is that we take 13 weeks to read a book.
That is a downside.
I don't think it is. Not for my brain. I have to read it 2 or 3 times. I mean, I could do one every week if I had to, but in reality, I don't have time. But I man up. I get it done.
Or what would happen?
Or I just read it once and then I help you guys cover for me.
I think that there are a couple of things like, for example, the state of the world that this novel is set in, that we might as well just kind of get out of the way now.
All right.
So what's the state of the world?
Well, is this called, like, setting?
Yeah, it's post-2004. We know that.
Actually, it only said 04.
Enough stuff is recognizable that it's not 3004, though.
Yeah, like the Marilyn Monroe bit, probably.
To elaborate on what the lazy podcaster is describing is the world has gone south in a bad way. The easiest way to describe it is like runaway global warming.
Yes, we're getting towards Venus.
It seems like the planetary evolution is mirroring Venus in a way. It's hot. They said the seas have, are evaporated.
We're mandated to wear like backpacks that are air conditioners, basically.
They're
if we go
required
outside.
to.
Yeah.
You mentioned it gets up to like 180 degrees outside. And, believe it or not, you can deal with that for a short period of time, unless it's like ultra humid. And they said it's ultra humid. So you can't,
it definitely makes a difference.
You can't endure that for very long.
So you have to wear protective covering to go outside.
He wore a pith helmet.
What's a pith helmet?
A pith helmet would be like a safari hat.
Yeah, it's made out of woven fibers. It's hard-ish.
I don't think the hardness of it is the thing. I think it's the fact that it's supposed to provide good circulation and keep the sun off of you.
For sure. But they didn't really describe these mandatory, legally required cooling units. And they said one businessman was going to work wearing these fancy red shorts, which was
typical of businessmen like him.
Yeah, I just think that was a nice touch. So I don't know. Do they have like cooling vests, or do they just have like fans blowing on them? I don't know.
Yeah. I just wonder if there's people out there saying, "Oh, I'm not going to follow this mandate. No, I won't do it."
I wondered if that was going to come up because, of what's going on in our world currently. I assume that if you don't want to die of heat stroke, or at least suffer from heat stroke, that you're going to do what you're told. That's a very real, you'll know. You never really recover from heat stroke.
Even as hot and as oppressive and as, you're going to die if you are out there in the daytime, it is. There are still people that say, sure is going to be a hot one.
Oh, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. I know.
People adapt to whatever becomes the norm, and then they comment on it from that perspective. So
small talk. Got to have something to talk about on the whatever it was, the inter-building commuter car, I believe it was.
Space travel's a thing in this for sure. People
It is.
go to Mars and back, it sounds like.
There's a colony on Mars. There's one on Ganymede. There's one on Venus. And he said at some point that there were other places that the UN might send people. There's a compulsory draft.
And they did say that we've gone to Proxima Centauri and that there's things there. We don't know what, but they are literally described as things.
They're alien.
Well, yeah, okay. They're not from here.
And the namesake of the book has gone there. He's gone to Proxima.
I understood he creates factories.
He's like Elon Musk.
Okay, so
yeah, they're called autofacts, which I assume means automated factory.
And they just, I guess, collect resources of the planet and start producing whatever.
Goods, yeah.
They said he got overzealous several times, and he created these autofacts and colonies that either didn't exist or planets that had very few people, and they would just pump out goods nonstop until there were literally mountains of goods there.
In the world today, we call it a supply chain, and there's been a few chains that have been removed from it right now.
Yes, exactly. So I read this novel by a guy named Alastair Reynolds, who I love personally, and who I may someday subject you both to. But in one of his novels, there is a piece of technology that has gone wrong. This terraforming technology has been created, but it wasn't quite programmed right, or there was some flaw in the system, and it suddenly just stops regarding anything that already exists as existing. So it decides that it just wants to fulfill its mission. It's kind of like the paperclip maximizer. Are you guys aware of this concept?
Uh-huh.
Where AI is sent to go and do this thing, make paperclips, do it as good as you can, as fast as you can. And it's okay, and it does it at the expense of everything else.
Oh, I see.
It tears up planets to make paperclips. That's what happened. It was a terraforming technology based on nanotechnology that started terraforming planets that didn't need it.
What's that show with a bunch of short stories from Philip K. Dick? We talked about it earlier. It's on Netflix.
Android's Dream one? That one?
Something like that. Anyway, they've got a whole bunch of these short shows, 30 minutes, 45
vignettes.
minutes, based on Philip K. Dick stories, apparently. And there's one in there where apparently humanity is gone, but there's this reservoir of humans that are surviving, and they've got these factories that are still pumping out goods, tons and tons of goods, even though there's virtually no humans left. And you find at the very end that this little population of humans that's surviving, they're actually machines too.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, the only reason they're there is because the factories have to have a purpose. And their purpose is to supply goods for humans. And they ran out of humans. Killed them all, I guess, or they died.
So they made some humans in order to sell them stuff. Yeah. Yep. I mean, I'm not an expert, don't get me wrong, but I think he's kind of famous as a thinker. He was an idea guy. His ideas are kind of stellar. I mean, they're kind of amazing. He deals with themes and topics that are not exactly common.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
We just got done reading Slaughterhouse-Five.
Yeah.
And there's a lot about Kilgore Trout in that one.
Science fiction novelist.
And as I was reading about Eldritch Palmer and his
Palmer Eldritch,
his making the goods and going a little too overboard, it felt like a Kilgore Trout premise. And as prolific and as different a thinker as Philip K. Dick suggested that he is, is Kilgore Trout an analogy for Philip K. Dick?
I don't know.
I mean, other than the bad novelist, although how I feel about the writings to be,
I don't know. I don't know that much about him. I mean, I know one thing. Supposedly he had a problem with certain substances. But
mind altering?
I think he liked drugs.
You mean like mustard?
Mustard gas and roses. It doesn't matter. We don't really care about the author on this podcast, do we?
No, not really.
I care about the books that they wrote. And if they're really great books, I want to read them. And if they turn out to be garbage, I'm going to stop after the first chapter.
Well, we're going to go into the second chapter, it feels like, I think.
This book is getting a second chapter, yeah, for sure.
Every week we'll see if we get to the next chapter or not.
Oh,
nope. we should do 1.5 chapters. It'd be 1001 Arabian Nights. Always leave somebody on a cliffhanger.
That's kind of a good point. Maybe we just start with we do a lot of talk, and then we just do half a chapter.
Oh, good. So this will be a 26-part series on the three stigmata of...
No, you just elongate it by one episode. That's all.
Oh, I see.
Right in the middle of a podcast, in an intense conversation, you just stop it.
If you would like to support us on Patreon, you can get the other half of this podcast recording.
Oh, I like that. That's a good gimmick.
That's blackmail.
Well, I think it's extortion, but yeah. The three stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. Did you guys look up Eldritch?
Like magic? No, I didn't.
Old, ancient, mysterious.
Weird, mysterious, sinister. That's the main character's name. I don't know if it's the main character, to be honest.
Not from this first chapter.
We've been introduced to some characters, but he's not really on there. We hear about him, and that's it. All right, so we've kind of covered the state of the world. It's hot. The runaway greenhouse effect is in effect. There's colonies. There's space travel. And apparently...
There's a draft.
There's a draft for the colonies. And... there's this company called PP Layouts, which is the parent company for Perky Patty, which is a doll.
Perky Pat.
Perky Pat, thank you. Which is blown up huge. It's gone viral. It's like the biggest thing in the colonies. And it's made somebody a lot of money. And that's somebody's name.
Leo Bulero.
So the preamble. Let's talk about the preamble.
Yeah.
It's this brief thing. And it sounds to me like he's pretty... yeah, he doesn't sound like he really is saying anything. It sounds like he's trying to talk some people into not abandoning his company or some such nonsense. I mean, is that the impression y'all got?
Whatever he was trying to say, it wasn't a very clear message. And he ended it with, "You get me?" as is a question like, "Oh, yeah, I get you," because that's what most people say when you ask him that.
Absolutely. Definitely. Definitely, I got you. You're spinning something. Like, it's out of your control and you're spinning something.
Well, that's definitely it. Something bad is happening and he's getting his people in line, so to speak.
He has faith, and so should you, because he's Leo.
He's obviously done something that's important, so of course he's going to feel that way.
Yeah, he's very wealthy.
Well, if anything I got out of this, it did seem on some level like it was a foreboding message. It had a foreboding feel to it.
Like something's going to go wrong for him. But I didn't know who he was at the time, so it was kind of like,
I didn't know either. There was no context there. No, but I kind of had the impression that there's a path, or it's circling the drain, or it's going in the wrong direction, and there's nothing anybody can do to stop it. It's kind of the feel I had.
You get me?
Yeah, you get me? Yeah. What do I have to base that on? Nothing but a feeling, because I was not entirely... coherent and comprehensible.
Chapter 1, Rondinella Fugate's apartment. Hung over, Barney Meyerson awakes in a strange apartment next to a beautiful young woman with cotton white hair.
He knows he's on Earth because he can feel the weight and the way he moves, and he knows he's on Earth. So that means he's been off Earth also.
That does mean that, you're right. He recognizes the gravity.
Right, he's not sure if he's in New York, and he doesn't know who she is. He's in underpants, and she's pretty naked, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming he knows that they've been together.
I'm sure he's figured it out, yeah.
I said that for the kids in the audience.
Together.
He goes over to his suitcase.
It's a briefcase.
And immediately we're in on it, that it's his psychiatrist.
The implication there is that briefcase can prescribe him medicine.
But it's not just his psychiatrist. It is AI psychiatrist.
It's definitely AI. Yeah, it's in the basement of the building that he lives in, which is Regal 33 or something like that.
It's not called Mr. Coffee. It's called Dr. Smile.
It is metering him and monitoring him, and he hasn't let it out of his hand. And he's like, "What? Who is this girl? And did we? I think we did. Did we?" And he's like, "Yes. Yes, you did."
She came from the People's Republic or something like that.
That was her last assignment. They work for the same company.
Right.
She has been assigned to him as his assistant.
And she came from People's China, is what they say.
That was her last assignment.
She is not Asian, right? She's a white woman.
We don't really know. She has white hair and beautiful teeth. And she's slim, and she's pretty fit. And I think he thinks that she's kind of hot. And she's naked as the day she was born.
Right.
She gets out of bed.
I would just like to say that as far as story openings goes, this kind of grabbed my attention.
Well, all right. So Ronnie gets up, and she immediately calls him dear.
Yeah, tells him to go make coffee. And
She goes, jumps in the shower. This is her place.
I did notice that she showered and then exercised, which I would do it the other way around. I would exercise and then shower.
Well, just think about what she just did. So she probably
she showered and then exercised. That's what she just did.
She just did some stretches. It wasn't
more
anything.
it's just like yoga. But I want to be clear to all the listeners that this was classy and tactful in a way that.
Hold on, this is the guy who thought that classy was telling a woman that she was a wonderful invitation to make babies.
I thought that was.
I don't think that's classy per se. I think that's funny that you think that that's classy. I think that's showing a lot about you.
There's nothing X-rated in this book so far.
Well, I've never tried to pick up anybody with that line, but I think it could work, to be honest.
It might. How'd you feel about her asking him if he thought she was pretty?
That's when she starts doing those exercises, too.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
I didn't pay it any mind.
What about the line, "You couldn't do my job"?
I see what you're getting at.
I see her at that one. I see her as like young and hungry and ambitious, and then with an overly developed sense of either self-importance or her skill sets. I see it all the time in my own job.
Well, maybe that's clouding your judgment. Like, she's obviously good at her job. He recognized that she could take his position with just a year or two of experience, and it took him 13 years to get where he was with PP layouts.
Sure, but as he's talking to Dr. Smile, he talks about how she really had a royal screw-up with some U.S. Civil War picture.
It was a window.
Yeah, a window. It didn't sell in China like they thought it was going to. Thing is that these guys are precogs. Again, Dr. Smile lets in on the fact that they did get busy, and the reason why after one night of being introduced to each other is that they can see the future somewhat. They knew they had an attraction that was probably going to be carnal. And so they said, hey, why don't we get drunk and do it anyway?
Don't bother the dating or the small talk. Let's just go back to my place because we know what's going to happen anyway.
He had that briefcase on until they went to bed.
It was because of this. She asked him, why do you have Dr. Smile? Why are you carrying that briefcase? You didn't even put it down until you climbed into bed with me. And he does not answer her. But she then says, the only reason you would have that is if you'd been drafted.
Right.
So he's gotten a letter from the UN on stationery that he recognizes, letting him know that he is up for a compulsory draft to be sent to one of the colonies.
I don't comprehend why people are drafted to go to a colony.
It doesn't matter. You don't have to rationalize it. You don't have to understand it. That's just the rules in this world, right? It's like you don't ask in a fantasy novel, like, what is the exact physics behind the Warrens in Stephen Erickson's novels?
There's no way the Blue Wizard could kill the Black Dragon.
You just go with it because in a way this is a fantasy novel. This is a science fantasy novel.
We did ask those questions when we read that novel.
We also admitted that there was no way to get an answer and we let it go.
Maybe sometimes when an author is like playing around with the concepts that we're reading, like maybe like in Slaughterhouse-Five, we may accept a little too easily. And then here we are, I'm just doing it again. It's we have all these words that he's creating that feel like something that we know, but isn't.
We're only one chapter in, but as I was reading this, he name drops a lot of things that kind of get elaborated on and explained further in the chapter. And it's only a 14-page chapter. Like, for instance, it says in the very beginning he was in Renown 33. I'm like, okay, that's just a name. But didn't you learn later that that's apparently, like, where the wealthy and privileged live?
The lower numbers.
Yeah, the lower you are, the better. And I don't fully comprehend that.
Is it a radius out from the center? Is like downtown Manhattan number one? Like where? What is it?
Yeah, something like that. Or maybe it's just like layers of an onion. Maybe the center of the onion is the best. I have no idea. But it clearly, it's numbered sequentially, and the higher the number, the more of a peasant you are, I guess.
Well, he has been drafted. He's carrying this Dr. Smile briefcase around in the hopes that Dr. Smile can let everybody know that this guy's crazy and is not fit for duty in the outer colonies.
Yeah, but Dr. Smile lets us know that Barney can handle 10 Freuds. Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but that sounds bad.
It's a unit of measure. That's great.
It sounds
That's
like
great.
one Freud is enough. I mean, if you have one Freud, you should be seeing a psychiatrist. But he can handle 10 Freuds. So
Yeah.
he's either one of the calmest men alive.
And yet, at the end of the first scene, he kind of snaps at Ronnie. This is not him handling stress well. Is he just a jerk? Is that what it is? Barney Mayerson?
So Ronnie suggests that if he were to go away as a draftee, she'll be in line for his job. And that's where he comes in and says, you couldn't handle it. So, yeah, it's a little bit of young whippersnapper. I don't think it's necessarily anything just because it's a woman or anything like that. But you're underneath me and you're going to remain that way until I am gone, that type of thing.
Did you notice that, the AI made that same joke about she's beneath you? Oh, I wouldn't put it that way, though, given what happened last night.
Sure thing. It's exactly what that said, yeah.
And also, the AI got his name wrong, and Barney Mayerson corrected him because he called him Mr. Bayerson.
Like Bayerson
he's like,
or something.
My name's
yeah.
Mayerson. And so the AI got it wrong.
It's a little weird.
Well, but there may be a reason for that. He may be antagonizing him because he's an egotistical man. And to have somebody familiar with you constantly mispronounce your name is kind of like...
Why would the AI do it?
Because he's testing him.
Yeah, it's testing him, exactly. And we've seen that in, well, at least in the Blade Runner. I never read Android's Dream. But in the very beginning, they're testing the synthoids or whatever.
Voight-Kampff test?
That seems to be a thing in 2 or 3 things I've seen of his now.
See, I'm just wondering, because like my concept of AI, I don't think is his concept of AI, like at all. I think he thinks of androids and the like as being essentially alive and having emotional range and capable of making mistakes and etc.
You don't think that's what we're ultimately aiming for? I mean, there are...
Not when it comes to finance, not when it comes to government, not when it comes to medicine.
Well, that would be like that paperclip thing then. If you don't have a human element, then if there's no humans, there's no death. I solved everything, that type of thing.
That's such a Twilight Zone thing.
I think the way he's picturing AI, and the thing is that we see it anyway. We want a little friend. We want a dog that can talk to us, a pocket girlfriend so I can go home at night because I'm so busy working 20 hours a day, They have that stuff. It's available. It's amazing and creepy and sad all at the same time, but amazing that this technology is occurring.
And wonderful.
Just not when it's your trash compactor.
I read another book by a guy named A.A. Attanasio called Solace. And in that book, this guy had his brain frozen. And he terminal illness or something like that. But they saved his brain, and he paid a lot of money to have his brain preserved into the future when they could heal him or something like that. 100 years, 200, sometime later, he gets woken up, and his brain has been hijacked. Somebody's stolen it, essentially. And they let him know that he's just, they found it. They found him, and he's now their property. And congratulations to him being the property of them, the new owners. And he can either have his brain chopped into little pieces and he can run blenders and stuff, or he can keep his brain whole, intact, and he can run a mining operation on an asteroid belt. So he's like, I'll take the asteroid belt, please.
Yeah, I would too.
Are you kidding? No, I want my brain chopped into little pieces. I want to be a bunch of blenders.
I don't know if the other one sounds better either.
Oh, it does, because that's like geology.
At least you have the opportunity to think. I think that's better.
Yeah, right, but on some level, you can harass the miners too.
There are no miners. It's kind of like the movie Moon. He's alone. He's a mind in a machine that's mining an asteroid belt all by himself.
Ooh. I changed my mind.
He ends up getting a robot body later on in the novel.
Oh, well, okay. Well, that's good. But otherwise, I'd have to go with the blender option.
All right, so let's talk about the end of this first section, the part in Ronnie's apartment. That's the end of the first part, okay? So is there anything else in there that you want to talk about?
Yeah, there was one other thing. It was suggested that our hero now, Mr. Bayerson...
Oh, you thought he was the hero.
Well, I mean, he's the subject of the chapter.
Yeah, okay.
He can't remember what's been going on recently, and it's suggested by, I think, Ronnie, that he is such a fabulous precog. He's always looking ahead so much that he can't remember something that happened just recently.
Or now, present.
I did want to say that too, and I don't know if that's...
Is that your problem, Philip?
I don't know where to begin or how to answer that. I'm sorry, what did you say? I'm thinking about the novel.
You're precogging. Yeah, you're precogging too well right now.
That is exactly what I wanted to say, and I don't know if it's something about him specifically, but I think she was implying that the more skilled or the higher your ability to be a precog, the less your ability to be in the here and now.
Did you guys get the impression that she was just as talented as him or more?
I think it was implied she was skilled. No, I thought it said the opposite. Like when he said, "There's no way you could do my job." Like maybe
yeah, but at the end, he evaluated her as needing only a few years to replace him, whereas it took him 13 years to achieve his rank or position.
Whatever.
He said she was brimming with wild talent.
Okay. So.
Well, she's that young stud that has just joined the team. You know, has a really powerful arm, but doesn't know how to really, control it.
Hits a lot of batters.
Yeah, exactly. Or throws wildly from the outfield. It's one thing to be able to throw 100 miles an hour, but if you can't put it where you need it, it's not that great. Yeah, and again, she had a fabulous collapse when it came to that China thing.
All I see in her is a young punk with skills that think she's better than her elders in this regard. And
That's right.
She rubs me the wrong way.
It's funny because I don't deal with the same kind of people at work that you deal with, and I didn't get any of that out of her. The apartment of Richard and Emily Nat.
Sounds great.
What's their number? They live in Con-Apt.
492.
Wretchedly high number.
They're like peasants.
That's what he says. It's the miserably high number Con-Apt building 492.
And Richard is eating breakfast and reading the homeopape, which is analogous to the tablet in the morning, I guess.
What's a newspaper?
Yeah, what's a newspaper? Exactly. And meanwhile, his wife is in the other room glazing ceramics.
Yeah.
Let's talk briefly about this company, PP Layouts. It's Perky Pat, right?
Yeah.
PP Layouts is the parent company. This is stuff that we find out throughout the chapter, and we're just going to get it out of the way now. PP Layouts, the creators of Perky Pat, what they do is it's kind of like an economy has built up around this doll. The doll is super, super popular, kind of like Barbie or kind of like Hello Kitty. And people will do stuff like make porcelain bowls. And they'll take them into the company, and the company will say, yes or no, we do or don't want those. And then they will miniaturize the stuff that they want and sell it as accessories for the doll. And this is a way that people make money.
This seriously sounds like LOL dolls.
I don't know what that is.
It's a extremely popular doll with lots of fittings and exchanges and personalities. And I don't know. One of my daughters is gaga for this, and it's really kind of hot.
Get them this Christmas.
Yeah, I know. Well, hey, buy your stuff now because supply lines are so horrible. It may take too much for you to get stuff. But anyway, she's bonkers about this, and I don't think it's anywhere on the same scale, but it's very similar in concept. Is kind of what I was thinking.
They refer to it as fash, which I think is short for fashionable, possibly the same thing that we think of as going viral.
Sure.
So anyway, we're back to Richard Nat eating his breakfast and reading the paper, the homeopape. And basically it's covering all of this stuff about the environment. The stuff that we talked about earlier, about the Selkirk unit of measurement for the ocean evaporating and, whatever, all the receding of the glaciers and the humidity in the air and the temperatures, the Wagners, and et cetera, et cetera.
I gotta say, for an info dump, which may or may not be important later on in the book, I think it's very well done. It doesn't feel like it's just all this information being thrown at you.
Were you not bothered by all the different names of things?
No, it was, hey, again, we're being immersed in the situation. We have to figure it out. Bravo, Philip K. Dick, for just changing some names, but you invented the tablet in this book, without saying it.
I liked it. I thought it was well done, and I think it keeps it, foreign. He gets his concept across that it's hot as Hades, and I don't think when he locks himself in to what's capable or unrealistic, but he does convey it's hot. And he did say it's 180 degrees, but I interpret that to be Fahrenheit, but, who knows what that really is.
It's Wagner's, actually.
And the thing is that, you know, there's a lot of people out there when they read something like this. So I do a lot of comic books, and a lot of people have a problem when politics or things that are current make their way into, you know, the stories. You know, they just want to read some escapism. Well, this is still very much escapism, but it's still very much reality. And this guy was hitting the nail on the head all the way back then.
In the 60s, the early 60s.
Yeah, he basically took global warming concept, which wasn't even a concept then, and had it go out of control. So I don't know what inspired him to do that, but it is surprisingly prophetic. You know, he exaggerates it here, or maybe he doesn't.
We'll find out in 50 years, right?
So, and then he entertainingly shows us how hot it is. And he talks about Richard's LP collection. They still have LPs then. All it took was the power going out for a little while, a short while. And the records all melted together. Every parakeet in the building died. Turtles were boiled alive. The people had to run downstairs to the early, you know, the low number apartments. And just then, automated robots came and fixed everything, and, you know, nobody died, I guess.
All I can say is, are these houses not insulated?
Apparently not at all, no.
And you got to pay the power also.
That's right.
And they don't pay with dollars, they pay with skins, whatever.
That's right, and he says his power bill has been eking up.
Oh, it's the apps cooling prorated swindle. I mean, and we saw a swindle in Texas recently when the winter snow hit really hard.
Oh, that's true.
And we saw the people that took the cheap power program. They realized what it meant when they had to get it at the bad time.
Oh, they never complained. Yeah, they never complained when they got super cheap power. But
well, nobody realized that was going to be that way, that it could ever be that way. That's how we are controlled by our power companies this way, and we look at things and say that's not right. And this guy's talking about you need it or else your LPs and your turtles are going to die.
Yeah.
You know? Switched over to iron oxide tape.
They don't melt.
I can't even imagine how iron oxide tape would work in a superhuman environment.
I assume it wouldn't last for as long as ours do.
Planned obsolescence.
CDs rust.
They oxidize, yeah.
So I don't know what the perfect medium is, but I mean, I've had music disappear and get corrupted on a computer. So flash memory in storage is not 100%.
I've lost my password to the cloud.
There's that too. Anachronisms abound. Some of them don't ring any alarm bells because, for example, LPs have kind of come back into favor, and tapes even made a little bit of a resurgence not too long ago. But the men were all at work and the women were all at home.
We've only met 2 women, and one was his personal assistant, a person.
It said right in here that the men were all at work and the women, the wives, were in the apartment.
You're right. That was when the heat
power went out.
Power went out. You're right.
Yeah, you got me there.
I didn't get you. I'm pointing out an anachronism.
You know what? My brain just overlooks these outdated sexist perceptions of civilization.
1963.
I know. No, trust me, I get it. I mean, for Philip K. Dick, it was beyond his comprehension that women would be equivalent in the workforce.
Oh, well, he's thinking about the earth melting. Screw women and men, right?
There are greater concepts here than equality.
Possibly.
Survival.
All right, but we're in his apartment. He's done thinking about the environment, but we have been pretty smoothly led in to understand the state of the world, which we've been talking about. His wife is in the other room painting ceramics, and he has a meeting today with her ex-husband, who is Barney Mayerson, who is going to yay or nay her collection of ceramics that she's made for miniaturization.
Well, I think the wife has rosy-colored glasses on this, but the husband...
Richard.
Yeah, Richard. I'll go see this guy.
Like, you can get this going. It will happen.
He's an even-keeled guy.
She doesn't say anything to him. It's like she doesn't try to steer Richard's perception of Barney at all. She doesn't say anything about him.
We're maybe playing a little bit too much in this. He brings up the possibility of it not happening. You know, him not getting the go-ahead with Barney. And she says something like, then that's the way it's going to be.
Right.
We'll just try again. You know, that type of thing. She's supportive, and she's like pushing him to go do it. But you're right. She's not filling him with false hope.
She doesn't even look up from the glazing that she's doing, and he says that she is so stressed out that she can't.
Right.
She can't do anything but like focus on what she's doing.
What is she stressed out about?
I think that this is kind of a make or break for their lives.
They are in the 400s, dude.
I think she's kind of hoping that this will work out. I don't know why she's not going to see her ex-husband, other than maybe women don't do that. But her husband's going to do it for her, even though she has a foot in the door, right?
It does seem, yeah, you're right.
Maybe it would be inappropriate. Maybe.
We're projecting, the 2021 mentality onto Philip K. Dick's mentality. And I think it was more that business takes place between men.
Well, maybe so, but it is his ex-wife. I mean, again, in just a moment, we're going to find out what lengths he went to make her, and the reasons that she's his ex-wife.
Richard leaves his apartment. He gets into an inter-building commuter car, and he's zooming away to go downtown to New York City and across the channel or wherever the hell he is from Maryland Monroe, New Jersey.
Right.
He has a gentleman sitting next to him who's wearing those red businessman shorts, which is hilarious.
He has a tie on.
And they strike up a conversation. Not because Richard wants to, but because the businessman wants to.
It's an old man. It sounds like a guy that, well, we know that he sold bow tie, or ties, right?
Ties.
He sells
Yeah,
ties.
Yeah, tie designer.
He has a way of marrying the fabrics and the colors in such a way, and he compares it to the secret recipe of Coke.
Well, it's a living organism.
Right.
That dyes the ties.
I didn't comprehend it. He said they found it off-world.
They brought it back, and they like bioengineered it to make their tie colors and designs and patterns.
I had the impression it was like a living animal on him. Mm-mm. Like he had a strip of phosphorescent algae or something.
No.
Okay.
So he's in the fash game.
Yes.
At least in some ways.
Yeah, they've already miniaturized their line of ties.
Right.
Perky Pat's boyfriend, whoever he is, he wears those ties. He has a closet full of those ties.
Yeah, I'm assuming this guy's at least in the 300 buildings. You know?
Who knows? But at least he successfully sold something to the, Perky Pat regime.
And that's what leads him to tell him about Barney and how he was married. Doesn't really like women, supposedly.
He had private information that I call bull on.
Oh, really?
Big time. He didn't even go to that meeting. His company sent a representative to meet with Barney Mayerson about the ties. They got their ties miniaturized, and yet he knows all about this dude's personal life and why he got divorced and how he got divorced and how he's vengeful towards women. None of that sounds realistic in New York City.
That's because you and I live in two different worlds.
You and I live in the world where there actually is a huge population. And just because you've had a meeting with somebody doesn't mean you know anything about them.
Well, for instance, like when even if I don't go to the high-level meetings I usually go to now, they are very familiar with who they're meeting with and what their motivations are and how to manipulate them and what's going on in their personal lives as much as they possibly can. So that when you're pitching something to them, you avoid certain topics and you manipulate other topics. So perfectly reasonable that this guy, even though he didn't go to that meeting, he was on the team that sent people to that meeting. And so it all rolls into, and then they come back and they download and I'm like, oh, we blew it because of such and such, or like good thing.
Your intel was wrong.
Yeah, it's like corporate espionage, but not as in a vile way, but it's just like knowing, it's like knowing your client.
So what he knows is
all right.
Phil?
Yeah, what does he know?
What does he know?
Well, what we've already stated is that he is quick, he's abrupt, he makes decisions and is final, and you're right, he's carrying baggage, a lot of baggage about his marriage.
His wife got pregnant 2 times.
And apparently that's a no-no.
So Barney got a divorce from his wife because he didn't want to move to a higher number of building.
He stayed at apartment number 33. Yeah, that's his building still. I don't know how true that is. We don't find out whether or not that's true or not. We just find out that this guy has a lot of information that he's willing to give to Richard Nat freely.
Right.
And my grandma always says, free advice is worth every penny. Right?
I liked it. I think that was a tactful way to insert information into the story. I liked it.
Again, another big info dump too.
Didn't feel smooth to me.
Well, let me try and win you back to my side, thinking it's true. Barney doesn't want to get drafted. He doesn't want to go off world. He doesn't want to lose his job.
Even though things on Earth suck, it's worse. It's
and
worse out there.
33, it isn't.
It's still 180 degrees outside, man.
Please, he didn't even walk in the sun.
And he doesn't get to go to the Antarctic resort beaches.
We know he's divorced. The guy didn't tell any lies about that.
All the information about the fact that he's vengeful towards women.
Well, make sure when you're showing this pottery, you don't say,
the ladies are going to go crazy for this stuff.
Don't say women will like this. Yeah, don't say that.
Well, who's buying these Perky Pat dolls anyway?
The colonists.
But that's where I'm getting at.
Don't know.
Okay, we don't know. We have no idea. I mean, it's not like Elmo dolls or, what is it, My Buddy or whatever.
Cabbage Patch.
Cabbage Patch, yeah.
Beanie Babies. G.I. Joe dolls.
Right, but what I'm getting at is Perky Pat sounds like a girl's doll, but I think that
Perky Pat is not gender specific, I'll have you know.
Yeah, that's true.
I was thinking that too, by the way. It was a completely, not androgynous, but non-specific doll. Just anthropomorphic, but non-specific. We don't even know if it's anthropomorphic. We haven't a clue. We just know it's exciting.
You're right. It's exciting enough that they're making a lot of money hand over fist. Well, the salesman reveals a lot of information. He also reveals that on the first page of the homeopape that he's reading, a ship coming from outside the solar system has crash landed on Pluto. He also says that if it's an alien thing, like those things from Prox, that he hopes they laser it out of existence. Because isn't it illegal for them to come here? There's laws.
And Richard said, yeah, he agreed.
He's down with that vaporizing thing.
He may be like Billy Pilgrim, though, where he's just like, yeah, just to get the guy to shut up or whatever.
That was a platitude response, non-committed. So this was like a huge, whoa, there are alien things out there. We have gone to other star systems. And apparently the Proxima Centauri, they don't say Proxima Centauri, they just say Proxima. But I got the impression that's the closest star system.
I think that's reasonable, yeah.
But apparently there's a race there sentient enough to
hire Palmer Eldritch to come out there and to update their autofax.
Yes, and they've got interstellar capability. They just haven't bugged us before. They're non-specific, other than this guy calls them things, and they're disgusting. Or maybe he's
seen pictures. I believe Richard said he'd seen pictures of them. Well, this guy is down. This guy is down with killing the aliens.
Needless to say, our solar system is off limits to things that don't come from here. And I'm not sure if that's prejudice or self-protection. Maybe a little bit of both. What do you call that when you're afraid of outsiders?
Well, we could just say it's isolationism for sure. Either way.
Yeah, whatever.
We don't want you. Xenophobic.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That'd be another one. Especially since we're talking about real aliens.
That is what I was talking about. Xenophobic, yeah.
So that's just him traveling on that car. He breaks contact with this guy because he's got to get off, catch a cab, and get down to PP Layout's main building, which I believe is submerged. It's an underground building.
Yeah, he still has to take another cab to get there.
He does. What does the cab say to him when he arrives at his destination?
Oh, he says, hold on, I have it right here.
Thy destination, your greatness.
Yeah, that's what it is. Your eminence is what he says. On that trip, he reads the paper again.
I think he's thinking more about Palmer Eldritch. He's having his own thoughts, whereas we heard the other guy's thoughts about what was going on and how he's afraid of aliens, and he's thinking more about Palmer Eldritch and how Palmer kind of went a little too far the last time he Elon Musked it.
It says here that it was conjectured that it was his ship that crashed.
Yes.
After having come back, and they never expected him to come back from Proxima, and he hadn't been heard from either.
That's true. Since he left, yeah. All right, but now we're at the building, yes? We're at PP Layouts. Barney Meyerson's office. Nat, he's very impressed with the receptionist.
So again, an emphasis is placed on her body.
There are a couple of weird, stranger things here that I'm not sure I really understood, but Yeah.
This woman wouldn't have a problem getting a job at that diner either,
You're talking about the tall woman that's the receptionist?
The one that's the receptionist, yeah.
She's wearing an open bodice dress with heels. And then think about like what people dressed like in 1963, what women dressed like in 1963, and I don't think it was super revealing. And she's wearing something that shows a lot of skin.
Unless you're a go-go dancer, I guess. The 60s were pretty awesome. Especially if you throw in a Philip K. Dick novel on top of it.
Probably quite a few, actually. You might be right. He might be one of the science fiction authors that was Kilgore Trout.
His stories are so fantastic.
You're right. They're smart.
But Kilgore Trout was supposed to not be a good writer. So the jury is out still on Philip K. Dick.
That's true. He definitely has his issues, right?
Right.
All right, so we're at Barney Mayerson's office. Richard Nat is shown in. In the office is Barney and Ronnie.
Yeah.
There's this long formal introduction, and the receptionist leaves.
Oh, my God, that introduction. Okay. Kind of funny.
Richard Nat, Barney Mayerson.
Barney Mayerson, Richard Nat. And then
he does the same thing for Ronnie.
And it's like, yeah, not needed, but it was a quick paragraph. But
it's very formal.
Yeah, it was very
In the
formal.
introduction, Richard Nat evaluates Ronnie as having hair that is too long and a sweater that's too tight.
Yes, well, that sweater has been described as tight and green.
It was mentioned in the very beginning when she was getting dressed, and it's how we know that it's the same day and etc. But I'm curious, like, why? How? What does it mean to be too tight? Does that mean? Is this like a judgment coming from Richard? So we're supposed to understand that he is kind of like from the old guard, and he thinks that you're supposed to have a high and tight haircut and dress a particular way, and that women should wear this and that and that. Is that what we're supposed to understand about Richard?
Basically, she's wearing a form-fitting bodysuit that shows off her physique.
Yeah, but the other woman was wearing something that was extremely revealing, and he didn't have a problem with her.
Touché.
Well, being a receptionist and a pillar of the business, might be two different things.
Barney Mayerson has been reading during the introductions. He didn't even look up. And then after the introductions are over, he finishes whatever it was, and he says, all right, show me what you've got. Richard Nat lays out all of the ceramics, and Barney just looks at them and says, no.
Get him out of here.
That's it?
That's it.
Yep, that's it, just like that. But Ronnie disagrees.
Yeah.
I want to be clear here. There's no indication whatsoever that he was prejudiced against this guy who married his ex-wife.
We got a lot of internal understanding of what Richard was perceiving, and he said there was no vengeance in the guy. There was no anger in him. He just looked and said no.
Yeah.
Yep.
The anger shows up at the end after he's been disagreeing with Ronnie. But she convinces him to look a second time. She says, really? I get a completely different view than you get. I see that this is potentially good.
She specifically talks about one piece, if I'm not mistaken.
She says that one piece will be the biggest one they have. That one's special. And he looks at it and he's like, in my opinion, you were wrong.
Well, I mean, she had that Civil War window debacle.
Here's where the young guard has the potential to replace the old guard. In this particular instance where a younger generation has a more competent awareness of what's cool than the older generation, and so on and so forth. But this guy's only 30, so that's not an excuse.
When you're out of touch, you're out of touch.
Yeah.
That is also true. And, I've lived long enough to know that I am, and I can admit it.
Having kids helps, though. LOL dolls.
Thank God I have, kids that can tell me how the world is actually working and what's cool and what's not cool.
They're going to be able to dial your phone for you someday soon. No, Dad, you don't put the watch in your butt.
The kids don't think that's cool anymore.
All right, so they have a minor disagreement. It's pretty civil from all outward appearances, but by the end of it, Barney is mad. He's angry, and he says, "Don't even leave your information. I'm not going to give this a second thought." And that ends the chapter.
He does one of these quick looks at her at the end. He's not happy with her at all.
I think he feels like he's on the outs, like he's about to get drafted. She's going to take his job. Nothing's looking good for him. I think he's under an extraordinary amount of stress. Plus, he's got this. Dr. Smile's not around, though.
I noticed that, too.
It wasn't mentioned, but you got to figure that it is.
I figured that if it was, he'd have mentioned it.
Maybe.
Right.
Well,
They didn't open it.
here's an example. So they really super emphasized it in the very opening scene that the guy doesn't part with it.
Never lets it out of his hand.
So they didn't say it here, but if you want to, meta read a little bit, it stands to reason Dr. Smiles is still right there doing his analysis.
Somewhere out there, yeah. All right, let's go back to the preamble really quickly and look at who it's written to. It says, from an inter-office audio memo circulated to pre-FASH level consultants at Perky Pat Layouts Incorporated, dictated by Leo Bolero immediately on his return from Mars.
Right.
And it's like really wishy-washy, like he's trying to spin something that's fallen out of control, and he's dealing with people who are pre-FASH.
Well, I think that would put it right in the hands of...
Precogs? Wouldn't they know better? Wouldn't they not be able to be swayed, the majority of them? Wouldn't they be able to tell that he was full of
I guess that's something we'll have to pay attention to.
I'm a little confused on that note. But other than that, I think I understood everything that he did. There was nothing that really hung me up. Like the names for the different units of measure, who cares? Like, that's not important. It's just flavor text, as it were, right?
I might have been a stupid few moments when I was reading this, but when I read it and just accepted it, when I finally then asked, well, why is this way? And then I read it again, it made perfect sense. So it kind of was like not until I actually asked the question of what does this mean?
The author answered you before you asked the question?
Sure. I mean, I think that they did, or he did. It's just that, maybe it was the being out of time, or for me, or not being in his situation. And, just not everything all tied up together until I started, really paying attention and and asking. The important part was it's not the paying attention. I was paying attention. The important part was asking, why is this? What does this mean? Like the briefcase. She said, you anybody that has this briefcase is being drafted. And I didn't really understand what that was.
I missed that. I missed that the first time I read it.
So then I asked myself, what does she mean by this? And this is a shrink. This is a shrink. And he's using it, hopefully, to show that he's so crazy that he won't have to leave the planet.
Do you think that's because he has enough money to try to get out of it, and this is one of the legitimate ways out of it?
Possibly. I remember a Bruce Springsteen story. He got drafted to go to Vietnam, and before he took his test the next day, him and his buddies got really lit so that he wouldn't pass his physical the next day. It's on a tape, and he's telling a crowd, and everybody's like, yay! And he was like, I'm not so proud of that.
It sounds like it's a pretty nasty experience to go to the colonies. He said, like, it was Richard Nat that was thinking about it, that, like, it's worse in the colonies than it is on Earth, and it's not pleasant on Earth.
Right.
I mean, Venus. They have colonies on Venus.
I can't imagine how that's possible unless it's like floating cities.
It could be. Have you seen the Isaac Arthur, like, colonizing Venus episodes?
No.
They're amazing. He's a very smart guy. I would highly recommend anybody listening go and visit Isaac Arthur. He's a futurist and very, very smart scientific thinker.
The one thing I do remember in Martian Time Slip was the very beginning was a housewife. And she was taking pills, if I'm not mistaken, because it's kind of boring on planet.
I hear the 50s were pretty boring, too, for a lot of housewives.
A lot of housewives with wine and Percocets and whatnot.
They were taking Mother's Little Helper, as the Rolling Stones can attest.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, even still, I'm not sure how this Mars or wherever the colony he's going to have to go to.
I have no idea. I feel you're right, though. I feel that he is the protagonist, and that in the beginning, I'm not really supposed to like him particularly well, and I don't right now. I'm not sure about Ronnie.
Hate him.
I didn't say I hated him.
Okay,
I just said I don't particularly like him. I don't know about Richard Nat. I don't understand how that's going to come into play, him and his wife.
Right now, he just seems like a normal person with a normal job trying to make his way in the world at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And then Ronnie?
Again, I had her pegged differently.
I could see all these people not being involved with the story going forward.
So perfect white teeth, that white hair. You think she's not going to be in the...
I want Ronnie to still be in it.
She's going to be in it. She's the standout. Like, the image drawn of her by the author is not normal.
Well, I don't know what to expect. But I just kind of assume that we're not going to be going back and forth, back and forth.
This guy writes insane books.
Okay,
and this book has been, I didn't read any reviews. I didn't read the back of the book. It has been described to me as terrifying.
Uh-oh.
Really?
Dude, you're freaking me out because I have an active imagination.
Yeah.
I guess my MO right now, modus operandi, is to read everything twice. But I think if I could tell the readers, like, the first chapter is worth reading twice to get your bearings on...
Nah, just listen to this podcast.
Or listen to the podcast, even better.
And then read it twice.
Yeah, and then read it twice. It wasn't that complicated, but certainly if you read it twice and it's only 14 pages, I think you get a much better context of where the story's going and what the characters are and all this other stuff that I think a quick read when you don't have any context about what's going on, it's hard to jump into the book. And
you know, I think that I've learned that lesson just from doing this podcast over time, that all of the books that I read in the past, I just read them casually. And unless I read it for school, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it because I didn't need to. And now I'm finding that I kind of regret that I don't want to read a book and not pay close attention now. Like, so even the casual reading that I do now, I read more slowly. I don't try to blast through a book like it's a competition or a race to the end because I lose so much. And the massive pleasure of reading to me is to understand and be taken on a journey. And the author is taking us on that journey. And I don't think that a lot of the words are wasted. So I agree with you. All right. Well, is there anything that you guys would like to hit on before we close it down for the night?
No, I said my piece.
No, if there's a way to comment and let us know what you think about this and the book, let us know.
All right. There we go. All right. Thank you for joining us. This is the first of 13 episodes, I think, and 13 chapters. Odd. That's a superstitious number also, by the way. So get ready for terror.
Well, we're out of October, so it's okay.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this first episode. We will see you in 9 days' time with Chapter 2.
Good night.
Hey, thank you all. Bye-bye.